Welcome to another trip down the Bourbon Road with your hosts, Jim and Mike. So grab a glass of your favorite bourbon and kick back.
Hey, this is Big Chief, and you're listening to the Bourbon Road. You know what I love to pour in my old fashions is a little maple syrup. Can't be just any maple syrup. It has to be from Seldom Seen Farms up in Ohio. He takes bourbon barrels, pours his syrup in there, and ages it for 6 to 9 months, making for some delicious syrup that you could pour on pancakes. You could pour it on waffles, chicken and waffles like this fat guy likes. But seriously, you want to make a delicious cocktail with some maple syrup and not that old simple syrup? Check out seldomseenmaple.com. Pick up some stuff from there today. We'd appreciate it.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jim Shannon.
And I'm Mike Hyatt.
This is the Bourbon Road. Today, Mike, another full-length episode.
Yeah.
It's a great Wednesday.
Yeah.
And we've got an episode that has been a long time in the planning. We do about one of these a year. when we can.
Yeah, when we can. If we don't have a guest on. And luckily, lately, we have had some epic guests on, some epic episodes. We've been on the Bourbon Road. I think we're the only podcast that does that.
Yeah, get out there, get to traveling, see people where they work.
Yeah.
Talk to them when they're doing their business. And well, not literally doing their business, but
some of them are.
Well, I meant not going to the bathroom.
Oh, no, not that kind of business. Good Lord. Good Lord, Jim. Good Lord.
All right. Well, anyway, so Mike, today we have listener questions.
We do. A lot of listeners, a lot of our roadies from our private Facebook group have asked questions of us. So I was like, hey, let's do an episode about these questions that we can just keep getting. And, lo and behold, I got a bunch of questions.
So are they going to stump us today?
Maybe. There are some questions.
So you didn't filter them out at all. This is as they came.
Yeah, as they came. We're going to answer them.
All right.
But what are we drinking first thing in our glass, Jim?
So today we've got the Old Fitz 9-year, and this is the 2020 spring release, I think. So this is the Bottle and Bond in the decanter bottle.
Yeah.
And I haven't had this in a minute.
This is an epic bottle from an epic friend to Adam Boothby. He's a great friend, no matter what. But probably our number one listener, moderator of our Facebook group. He also writes reviews for us, puts them up on our Facebook page or our website. And I love that.
He went to the distillery and got a bottle for you. Is that where you got it from?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He is a hell of a friend.
Yeah.
That's a friend for you.
Yes, it is. So the 9-year Bottle and Bond. So let's talk a minute about the Old Fitz Bottle and Bond. It's a twice-a-year release, spring and fall. The proof point never changes because it's a Bottle and Bond, but the years of age do.
Yeah.
And it usually varies somewhere between 9 and 14 years of age.
Well, what do you think I like about it the most, Jim?
It's a wheated bourbon.
Hell yes. I love it. It is delicious. I'm already drinking it. I just can't take it.
Well, we've got listener questions to get to. We're not really reviewing the bourbon today. We just wanted everybody to know what we're drinking on. Yeah. And Mike, I certainly appreciate you breaking out the good stuff today for this episode. We've got a really special bottle for the second half.
We do. And listeners, if you listen into the very end, just because me and Jim doesn't mean we don't have a giveaway. We do have a pretty cool giveaway today.
I think it's cool. Very unique giveaway.
Unique, and it has a great cost. So listeners, pay attention to the very end, and we'll hook you up. So Jim, this first question comes from Tom. I'm going to say Cohen. I apologize if I'm going to mess your name up. I'm not good with pronouncing people's last names. But Tom asked for Jim, what's your favorite wheated bourbon or wheated whiskey?
My favorite wheated whiskey or wheated bourbon. It doesn't matter either way, right? Wheat whiskey or wheat bourbon? Man, that's a tough question, Mike, because there are a few that stand out in my mind. The one in my glass right now is pretty darn near the top of the list. So the Old Fitz Bottle and Bond would definitely be a contender. The Legends Weeded Bourbon out of Georgia is another one.
Oh,
that I really like.
That's super nice bourbon.
And one more. Let me give one more honorable mention. So then I would say the Rebel 10-year is probably my number 3.
Those are 3 pretty epic weeded bourbons. That's me saying that.
And I've left out a few that are pretty like major, like Maker's 46, Cask, and some other things like that. But I got put on the spot here, so I had to come up with an answer. So of those 3, who's going to take the cake?
I'd say what we got in our hand right now.
Yeah, spring or fall release of the Old Fitz Bottle and Bond.
Yeah,
it just depends on the release and the year, but I would say in general, I love that one because it's always a surprise when it comes out.
Out of those 3, yeah. I'd agree with you. So he also asked, he said it's been well documented on the show that you're a big Wild Turkey fan. I said that's understated, Tom, that he's a big Wild Turkey fan. You have no idea. I think next week I'm going to see him act like a little schoolgirl. Hint, hint, for an episode. But so, Jim, outside of the standard expressions, what has been your favorite Wild Turkey bottle you have gotten to try in your lifetime?
So there's 2. So one would be contemporary issue, like something that comes out recently or within the last 5 years or so, would be the Decades bottle.
Oh, yeah. Hell of a bottle.
That's definitely near the top of my list. But probably it's going to be a Dusty. It's going to be a Dusty Turkey, probably an 80s era, 81 101, maybe a CGF, possibly the late 80s Beyond Duplication Export. So between those 3, the Decades and then the 3 Dusties, I'm going to go with a 1981 Wild Turkey 101 Dusty. Even though the Beyond Duplication and the CGF are both phenomenal, that's what I'm going to go with.
Man, some great bottles there. Tom asked me what's my favorite rye bourbon or rye whiskey.
He's playing the opposites game here, isn't he?
Oh yeah, he wrote it right, Jim.
Yeah.
Probably my favorite rye bourbon. Man, that is tough. That's real tough. Rye whiskey though, it's always that newest thing that we've gotten to try, right?
It's kind of growing on you a little bit.
Yeah, but I do got some favorite ryes. The rye out of Frey Ranch out in Fallon, Nevada.
Yep.
Pretty badass, right?
That was good stuff. Yeah.
Leaper's Fork Rye is pretty special to me. Not just because the team down there is so badass, but the whiskey itself is just delicious. It's candy-like. And then the rye whiskey that we tried from Laws, I thought was pretty amazing.
That was good.
It was 7 years.
Yeah,
7 years
yeah.
old. Rye bourbons, I people think that's all I drink's weeded, and that's not true at all, right, Jim?
No, you do. You drink a little bit of everything.
Yeah. I got plenty of bottles of rye bourbon. Man, I like Buffalo Trace. I do. It's a good standard drinker and stuff. I like the flavor of it. Woodford doubled oak, I'm a big fan of that because it's chocolatey.
You like those toasted barrel finishes, don't you?
I do. Michter's Toasted. Michter's Toasted. I'm a big fan of. So those are my ryes, I guess I would stick to, is that Woodford, that Michter's Toasted. I really like those. Big fan of those. And then Buffalo Trace is just I like the story. I like buffaloes. That kind of goes to my Native American.
You want to ride
heritage.
a buffalo?
I do want to ride a buffalo. There's photos out there, people. I tried to get Jim to pull over on the side of the road. We saw one day, and I was like, let me ride that thing, Jim. Everybody's like, keep driving, Jim. Just keep driving. So he's actually got a question for both of us. He's got a whole bunch of questions for both of us. what's your favorite bottle in your collection that can't be replaced?
This must be the bottle that I'm sad to see go empty, right? Because I know that's it.
That you can't get it anymore.
It's going to have to be a pick I was on. I think I'm going to be sad to see the Kraken bottle of Weller Full Proof pour its last drop.
Wow. I would agree with you on that one. I have a bottle on my shelf of that, but the bottle I'm going to be sad to see go is another pick, is the Old Elk. It's a weeded bourbon. It's from the Nashville Bourbon Society down there. Just one of my favorite bottles. I love the label. I loved everything about it. I love the whiskey inside of it. So much so that somebody came over the other day and they were like, "Can we drink some of that?" And I was like, "No." I got a little bit left, and I hated to say that, but
you don't say no very often.
It's very rarely that I'll say no to a pour, but that's one of the pourers that I said no to. If you came over, I said, yeah, go ahead, have at it. But that's one of the bottles that it was like one of my first picks I'd bought and stuff. And I'm not big on buying picks,
So you and I both answered that question with picks.
Mm-hmm.
So picks are bottles that when they come and they're special, you're sad to see them go because it can never be duplicated. Unlike, if you were to get a bottle of Michter's toasted bourbon at barrel strength, that's a great bottle, right? Everybody loves it. But good and well, if you had to have another bottle, you can get it.
Yeah, I mean, anything.
But with a pick, you can't.
Anything at Michter's, if we wanted a bottle bad enough, we know some people that may be able to help us out to get one.
But what I'm saying is they're making more bottles in that profile. Whereas with a single barrel pick.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
One more question from Tom. He asked, are you a regular listener, a watcher of other spirits related podcasts, YouTube channels?
Absolutely. Yes. So, my number one other podcast that I listen to is Dad's Drinking Bourbon. I do listen to others. This is my bourbon podcast, Perry. I like that one as well. Now, YouTube, Jason, Mash and Drum, Chad and Sarah for Bourbon Night.
Man, some great people there, every one of them. I'd have to agree with you on podcast about dads. John and Zeke are just fun to listen to. There's no bullshit coming out of them. They're just two good dudes out there. Some other podcasts that I listen to, I got a longer commute to work than you do, Jim.
Yeah, mine's about 30 seconds.
So I'm listening to the Bourbon Life a little bit. Angel Shares, the Angel Share, a new podcast out there. Bourbon Lens, I'll listen to them every once in a while. I was trying to think other podcasts. That's it. I'm kind of selective on those. Real selective, I guess. YouTube channels, I don't get to watch that much YouTube at all. I have been watching TikTok and Bourbon Bibs. Bib and Bourbon is a guy out there I've been watching on TikTok. He's funny as hell. I like him. He's just in a pair of bib overalls and he's talking about whiskey and he doesn't take himself seriously.
Basement Rickhouse.
Yeah, Basement Rickhouse on TikTok too. They are out of Frankfurt. A great TikTok to watch. Man, I watched a little bit of Instagram too. I like to watch Urban Bourbonist on there.
One of my favorites. Yep.
Yeah, just a great guy on there. UK House of Bourbon or House of Bourbon UK. I like to watch him because he's always full of energy and stuff. He doesn't really do lives. He just does his videos.
But boy, he gets so excited when he opens a package, doesn't he?
He does. Yeah. So that's our shows, Tom. Tom, you did it right. I'm very thankful that he asked us that many questions.
That was great.
So Abby's got a question for us. Our good friend Abby.
Now, Abby's poured a little bourbon for us, hasn't he?
He has. He's poured a lot of bourbon for us. A great friend of the show. If you get to meet Abby, feel lucky that you're in his presence. He's a great man. So he asked, which distillery expansion are you most excited about for in 2022?
So does distillery expansion include, building a new distillery as well?
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking forward to Horse Soldier.
Man, that's gonna be hard to beat, Jim. I can't even think of. I mean, Heaven Hill was doing a bourbon expansion again, or they're building a new distillery. Old Al's building one.
Yeah.
God dang. And there's some I know about, but I can't say anything about. I know some distilleries are getting built, but they haven't been announced yet. I'm excited about EJ Curley that we did a review on.
Sure.
Because they're digging up that bourbon history. I really love the history part of bourbon. And that building of a distillery, like you said, is super exciting. Bluegrass Distillers.
Yep.
Building a distillery. That's what we're excited about.
Sure.
I think we get to see bourbon expansions. It's nothing for Buffalo Trace or Heaven Hill, Wild Turkey, Marshtown Bourbon Company. Seems like they're always expanding, putting up brick houses left and right here and there. They're doing all kinds of great stuff down there. They got the money to do that kind of stuff.
Wilderness Trail.
Yeah. Jim Beam, heck, man, everything's got a fresh coat of paint down there, but it's not surprising to see those companies take a little pride in themselves and now everybody, I'm going to take a break here. Jim's out of whiskey, so I'm pushing the birthday bourbon to him because I know he loves it.
Oh, you let the cat out of the bag. Second half whiskey was
We didn't make it to the second half yet. That's all right. That's the bourbon expansions we're excited about. James' husband asked, now this is a tough question, James, man, and trust me, our schedules are so full, but I'll go ahead and bring the question out. When will the next Bourbon Road pick come out?
August the 6th.
Yeah. So we do have a pick we went on.
Yeah.
So August 6th, a pick's coming out. Actually, 2 picks, Jim.
Yeah.
With the Southern Whiskey Society from Made South, right?
That's right.
Our good friend down there.
Chris Thomas.
Yeah. Great podcast, too. If you haven't checked him out, one of your favorite podcasts.
It is. He hasn't had any episodes in a while, but I tell you what, you just go back and listen. If you're a foodie and you love bourbon, oh man, it's a great podcast.
So Jim and I will be at that event. You want to come to that event? There's going to be 2 great picks there, but I think we're going to do a pick maybe that morning that will possibly be released at Bourbon on the Banks.
Yay.
There's still some stuff to work out with that, but Jim will tell you, we're both like just monster busy. 2 jobs, 2 different wives. We got to make sure we keep happy, right?
Who have jobs as well.
Have jobs. We both got farms we got to take care of. It's not that we don't want to do a pick. It's just, I think it's timing and, waiting till some of the laws got changed too. Would you agree with that, James?
I would say so. Because, now in Kentucky, things are changed a little bit. And distilleries are allowed to allocate 30% of their barrels that are set aside for private barrel picks to be released straight out of the gift shop without having to go through the 3-tier system. So in other words, the Bourbon Road can organize a pick with Distillery A and pull up in our truck and load everything up in the back of the truck. It's the way to do it, right, Mike?
Yeah, I think we're close to doing another pick. The Leaper's Fork pick is just because we're going to be down there and they're great friends. And, people have been bugging us about a wheated bourbon, but that wheated bourbon probably going to come out of Tennessee.
Yeah, it could be. It could be. So if you're coming to Bourbon and Beyond in the fall, make sure you leave some room in your suitcase. Take some bottles back with you because the rules have changed.
There's going to be some great picks there for Bourbon on the Banks too. And hopefully we're on one of those. Our last pick, me and Jim, we agreed on the pick totally.
Yes, we did. And we agreed with Chris as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But there was more than just us three.
Yeah.
There was a whole crew.
There was a whole crew down there. We had a great time. But check out that event. Buy your tickets today. Jim and I will be down there. We'll have our gear with us. We might cut an episode down there.
I think we might pull up our chairs on stage and record an episode.
Heck yeah. So that's that question right there. Let's go on to the next question.
By the way, we've got the 2021 Old Forester birthday bourbon in our glass. Just so you know.
Yeah, great bourbon.
Wow, that's a pow right in the palate.
Right in a kisser. All right. Doug Keller's got a question for us. Doug's asking, what's been each of your favorite people you've met through the show?
Oh my gosh, that's a tough one. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to cheat on this one like I have on everything else. I'm going to give my top 3.
All right.
In no particular order. Peggy No Stevens. Steve Coombs. Lisa Wicker.
Wow. That's hard to beat.
Now that's hard for me too, because I could very easily make that list 50 people, because there's some really cool people, but those are the first 3 that came to mind. And usually your first answer is the right one. So I'm going to go with all 3 of those, but
it's not bad. There's great answers. Yeah. Great people. I
should say who's who, right? So just in case people don't know who they are. So Peggy No Stevens, the first female master taster.
Queen of Bourbon.
No doubt about it. Steve Coombs, author, bourbon. He knows so much about bourbon, and he knows an awful lot about country hams.
He does.
But he's got a lot of books out. You want to check him out. And then Lisa Wicker, she's the master distiller for Widow Jane. We've kind of struck up a little bit of a friendship with her.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go a totally different route.
Okay.
Totally different route. So my first person, Jim, would have to be you. The show that I got on, we've morphed into something bigger, but the guy that walked up to me in a bar and said, "You're drinking bourbon. What do you know about bourbon?" Struck up a conversation, struck up a friendship.
Oh, shucks.
The show wouldn't be what it is without you, and without you asking that question. If you'd have never taken that chance, and you're not the guy that comes up and talks to people either.
I'm definitely not. So we just happen to be sitting next to each other, right?
Yeah.
Had you been across the room, it might have never happened.
Adam Boothby, I know I mentioned him before. I consider Adam a great friend, a confidant. It's something whiskey will bring you together, right? I remember when we first started, I remember you saying, "Hey, this whiskey person's coming over to my house." And I was like, "Man, you don't even know that guy." And next thing you know, I'm inviting Adam to my house and staying at my house. And my wife saying, "He could be an axe murderer or something, or a murderer." And I was like, "Nah, I'll be all right."
He didn't bring his axe, though, did he?
Well, he'd have had to have more than an axe. Adam's just Adam. He's a great guy. He's got his own life and stuff down in Chattanooga, but I know that he would love to live up here in Kentucky. And I got to add 2 more guys to that is Drew Allen from Memphis, Tennessee. Has become a great friend. If I'm in Memphis, I'm going to have to stop and see Drew. And I've called Drew on several occasions, and I've offered both of those guys opportunity to be guest hosts when you were around. It just didn't work out. And then Jason Waller is a veteran like us. He's been a guest of the show, and he's a moderator too. And I think those 3 guys right there with you, to me, I've felt an honor to meet. And I had to say those 3 names with that. I feel we wouldn't do them justice if we didn't. That's
pretty awesome, Mike. Yeah, we definitely took that in different directions. So I just assumed the question was what guests, and you actually you thought about that a little bit.
Well, we've had all 3 of those been guests on the show.
They have been. That's true. Absolutely.
They have. Now, if you were asking me who my favorite distillers, or, if we had a distiller on and stuff, or different guests than our moderators.
It's hard because we've got 270 some odd episodes, Mike.
The last episode I did.
That was pretty awesome.
Jane and Denny. I felt like I was with my brother and sister with them too. Another episode. I love music. I'm just the biggest music nut. You've had some great music discussions, but Taylor Austin Dye.
Yeah.
She chunked back whiskey like nobody's business with us.
Man. No apologies there. She threw it back.
And she got a set of pipes on her. She could just sing.
Yep.
And then one other person that I feel a great friendship with, he's always done us right. He's made Tennessee a home to us, is Matt King.
There you go.
You know, I know that's more than 3 or even 1, but that's a hard question.
And folks, if you've been a guest on the show or you're a friend of the show and we didn't mention your name, believe me, it's nothing bad. It's just there's so many. We had to come up with a few, right?
Yeah. Heck yeah. Well, are we up against the break, Jim?
I think we're at the first break, Mike, and we're already into the second half bourbon here. So
we might have to add a third bourbon too.
We might have to add a third bourbon. So, all right, folks, stick around. When we come back, more birthday bourbon, more something else bourbon we don't know yet, and more listener questions.
Yeah. Man, Jim, you know what I've really been enjoying lately?
Oh, you're going to tell me.
Some of that Seldom Seen Farms maple syrup that's been aged in bourbon barrels. It is absolutely delicious, not only in a cocktail, but you can cook with it, right?
You can. You absolutely can. Now, Mike, Kevin just sent me a new shipment, so I got a little bit more. And I've been making some beef jerky lately.
Really?
Yeah. Now, I know you're the meat master, but I tried my hand at it. I said, I want to make some beef jerky. And I've got a pretty decent beef jerky recipe. And it's got a little bit of soy sauce, a little bit of Worcestershire, a little bit of, onion powder, garlic powder, those kind of things. But I always put brown sugar in it. Well, this time Kevin sent me a bottle of his granulated maple sugar.
Wow.
And I decided that I was going to substitute the maple sugar for the brown sugar. Oh, game changer. Let me tell you.
Total game changer. Huh?
Total game changer. Some of the best beef jerky you've ever had. So I'm going to make another batch here in about a week, and I'll be sure to get you some.
Man, that sounds delicious. Vivian took, and we just got an air fryer like most people got these days, right? And she took and soaked fresh pineapple in that maple syrup and then put it in the air fryer, and it kind of crisped up a little bit.
Oh, sounds good.
It was just magically delicious. And people probably wonder why we love it so much. Kevin competed in the Maple Festival last year, 2021, and he was named grand champion. That's saying something.
So Seldom Seen Farms, grand champion of the 2021 Maple Syrup Festival.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's saying something.
Yeah.
You're going up against some heavy hitters in maple syrup. And I know we're talking about just the syrup, but, that's something to be proud of. Hats off to you, Kevin, for winning that. Kevin's also competing in a couple other competitions. Make sure you check out his website. Check out his social media on Instagram and Facebook. You won't be disappointed. If you want to buy something from him, where can they go, Jim?
You can go to seldomseenmaple.com. And Kevin and his crew, they've got a great website, very easy to navigate. They got all their products on there. You can buy their maple syrup by the bottle. You can buy it by the case. You can buy that sugar. Oh my goodness, Mike, that stuff is so good. And they've got some other gift sets there too. So you definitely want to check it out.
Well, he's also going to be in some distilleries pretty shortly here. Some distilleries that I love and I know you love. He's going to be down at Leaper's Fork. You can find a syrup down there aged in their barrels. Treaty Oak down in Dripping Springs, Texas. I was just out there. His syrup's going to be there.
Awesome.
And at Garrison Brothers in Texas, if you think you love some maple syrup, make sure you go into Garrison Brothers and pick up a bottle from them also. Kevin appreciated I know he loves people. You're supporting a local farmer, a local product, a small family. This is no factory place that's putting out maple syrup, right, Jim?
This is a good man doing good work.
Yeah, gotta love it. Well, make sure you check out his site, like Jim said, seldomseenmaple.com. Pick up a bottle today.
All right, we are back. This is our 2022 listener questions episode, and Mike and I have been sipping on some pretty nice bourbons today. In the first half, we had a 9-year-old Fitz Bottle and Bond in the decanter. Beautiful spring 2020 release. Late in the first half, we opened up the Old Forester 2021 birthday bourbon. I still got a little bit in my glass. How are you doing?
I got enough to start the show with.
We'll start the show. And then here in a little bit, we won't say what it is yet, but here in a little bit, we'll crack this other bottle, which is also pretty special.
For all those haters out there.
There's
not much left in this birthday bourbon bottle.
No, but savor it, Mike.
And I have shared the hell out of this bottle.
It's a really, really good bourbon. I mean, it's really good. Very complex, very bold. You could sit and drink on this and talk about this for hours. It's got so much going on.
So the first question for the second half comes from Adam Boothby.
Oh, Adam.
So Adam Boothby sent us a question, Jim. The market continues to be flooded with NDPs. That's non-distilling producers for all you new listeners out there, especially when you watch the TTB. What's that stand for?
That's the people who approve the labels for the bottles.
Yeah. They got a website. He said for new products coming soon. Maybe time to revisit discussions around labels so folks can try to be informed. Well, heck, let's take this label we got right here, right now, right?
So the 2021 birthday bourbon.
Yep.
Green label.
They put the proof on here. I mean, That's by law. You have to put the proof. This is 104 proof. They also put the alcohol volume on there, which would be half of the proof, right?
Right.
Where this is distilled. So this is actually distilled and bottled by Old Forester Distilling Company in Louisville, Kentucky.
Very transparent.
Yeah, it's straight up. What they're not going to give you on the label is, though, the mash bill.
The mash bill, right.
But make sure you read your labels, especially because they'll put on the very back of it where it's distilled, where it's bottled at. That distilled part matters, right?
That's right. It absolutely does. Because, in the case of a non-distilling producer, they may be located in Kentucky. They may be a Kentucky distillery who's actually getting their liquid from Indiana.
Well, let's talk about a couple of those. So you got Foregate, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't distill their liquid. They buy it. Old Carter.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them have bought Tennessee, and they both bought Indiana whiskeys. So that's just folks out there. If you look at a brand, make sure you're reading the back of the label, making sure you know where it comes from. This right here says 12 years, age 12 years.
Yep.
Is that a big thing?
Well, no, it's just more information for the consumer. Now, 12 years on a bottle doesn't mean that the liquid is actually 12 years. It just means the youngest liquid in that bottle is 12 years.
Yeah.
And in the case of a birthday bourbon, we can probably be pretty sure there's some older bourbons in there.
Yeah, you'd hope so.
That 12 year is the youngest. There's probably some 14s or 16s in there to give it that depth and that boldness that it carries. And it's a blended bourbon, right? It's blended with multiple barrels from multiple seasons and multiple rickhouse locations in order to get this profile.
And that's an art right there.
It's an art. It absolutely is.
And, Denny and Jane last week talked about that, about how the master blender at distilleries has kind of risen right up there to the level of a master distiller, right?
Yeah. So they've always been very notable and popular in Europe in the Scotch industry. because the blender is the one that actually creates the magic, right? Even though the master distiller is the one creating the liquid that goes into the barrel, the blender is the one that's deciding how to mix those to a profile.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very celebrated. I believe you'll see that more women are master blenders than men are. It's a fact that women have better taste than men.
Yeah, I don't know why it is, but they just do. They have more sensory capability than we do.
Yeah. Simply amazing. And some of the stuff they can put out is just amazing. So that's the labels. Make sure you're paying attention to your labels and understanding what you're drinking. In today's age, there's no reason not to know. There's plenty of information out there.
And to Adam's point, non-distilling producers are not distilling their own liquid. They're buying their liquid from somebody else. They're, in many cases, buying multiple barrels, deciding how to blend those together to achieve the best result. In some cases, they're simply bottling single barrels. So it can vary. And some of them are actually rebarreling and producing barrel finishes.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And now we're not saying don't go out there and buy those. There's the two I mentioned, Old Carter and Foregate.
Phenomenal whiskeys.
Yeah, just
really good
super
whiskeys.
Beautiful and stuff. And that kind of comes into Adam's second question. He said, also, maybe y'all take on the surge of Finnish bourbons. Feels like everyone has jumped on that train. I'd like to see distillers focus on more solid and well done bourbons without the finishes.
Fair enough. I mean, there are different schools of thought on that, obviously. Bourbon, there are people who feel more inclined to drink. They're more purist. They like bourbon to be bourbon, right? And once you do a flavoring finish or a secondary finish on a bourbon, it's no longer truly a bourbon, is it? It's now a bourbon finished in this or finished in that.
That's a whole other show, Jim.
I know it, but it's a different category.
Yeah.
So what Adam's talking about is, I think Adam prefers the true bourbon whiskey category.
I don't know, because I've seen him post plenty about Foregate.
Yeah.
I think he likes his finished bourbon, but I think there's so many different people doing it. It is flooding the market.
It's getting diluted a little bit.
Maybe. And also, are they trying to mask something? I always worry about it. What are you trying to hide? Or are you just trying to get on that train, like Adam said, and be on that finished bourbon train?
Yeah.
I'm not positive. I always want to see bourbon. Just if you want to finish in a secondary barrel.
Yeah.
Toasted preferably.
Yeah. How do I feel about it? I feel about it this way. As long as it's labeled correctly, as long as it's labeled that it is a bourbon finished in this or that or the other, and that it's under a different category, I'm okay with it. I typically don't drink finished bourbons. They're not my thing. I have enjoyed quite a few of them, but it's not my daily. It's not what I'm after on a daily basis. I kind of lean a little bit towards Adam there. I like well done traditional bourbons, but I've got nothing bad to say about those that do make finished. I mean, Angel's Envy's knocking it out of the park.
Oh yeah. I mean,
so Foregate too.
Yes. People are hitting it home and stuff. Todd Ritter's got a question for us. He said, bourbon prices are going up due to grain cost, barrel shortages, bottle shortages, and everything under the sun. How will that affect yours and Jim's purchasing?
I don't think it will. How have the gas prices affected your purchasing of gas?
It makes me cry every time I drive to the pump, Jim.
Yeah, but I think that it hits some people hard, no doubt about it. As the bourbon prices do increase, it becomes less and less easy to get your hands on some bottles at a fair price.
Yeah, I look at it as a different thing, and I don't know if that's a right question for you and me, right? Because it's rare now that we go and purchase a bottle?
Yeah, we're not the right people to ask that question of because we're typically not buying bourbons. Well, sometimes we are. Like I bought that Jack Daniels on last week's review.
And I do feel the strain at the gas pump because I do commute back and forth, and my wife commutes back and forth, and even mowing my grass, I look at that pump. But number one, we don't purchase that much bourbon, or really on a typical basis. We won't buy a whole bunch of picks. It's just not what we do. Neither one of us.
Right.
And we're probably drinking somebody else's whiskey, to be fair. That's not a good question for us at all. Drew Allen, another moderator, had a question for us, Jim. Drew also wanted to know the same thing with Adam. When will the non-distilling producers stop? I find myself not supporting them when I can support a craft that is producing their own juice.
It's a great question. I think that personally, you have to draw the line where you feel your money needs to go. When you open your wallet, if you don't feel good about buying a bottle from a non-distilling producer, I think that you have to follow your heart and do what you think is right. As far as I'm concerned, I'm always looking for the craft in the bottle. And the craft doesn't necessarily have to be the craft in distilling. It can be the craft in blending. It can be the craft in finishing. I don't usually get too caught up in the story behind it or the marketing involved, but I am bowled over by the liquid itself. And when the liquid's good, I usually don't worry about whether they're a non-distilling producer or not, if they've done a good job blending. And it's not just blending, Mike. I mean, blending is so important, as we know. Ashley Barnes is a magician when it comes to blending whiskeys.
Amen, brother. Preach it.
But selecting barrels is another art.
And that's something she does too, is selects barrels.
Right.
know?
I mean, being able to select barrels and see how they might do a job for you in the future, that's a pretty tough job. I mean, it's a very important job. So there is craft in blending, there is craft in barrel selection, and I think that we have to give some credit to the NDPs where that's concerned.
Yeah, I'm torn between both of them, because here's the thing: craft distilleries, and I said this of laws, right? They're coming of age, right, Jim? They're getting a little long in the tooth where they can have that 7, 8, 9 year, 10-year-old whiskey.
And lots of it. And some of it is just simply amazing. So, man, Drew, I agree with you, man. I tend to think if I had to choose, I'd choose the craft distillery. But remember, some of those non-distilling producers are going to become craft distilleries eventually. Right.
You got to start somewhere. And if that's the only place you can start, you got to raise that capital to build a distillery. Heck, the people doing it today aren't the first to do it that way. We know that to be true, right, Jim? Yeah,
and some of the NDPs will never make their own stuff. I mean, that's just a fact. That's just the fact. I mean, some of the NDPs will always be purchasing other people's whiskeys, blending it to their specification, bottling it, and putting it on the shelf. That will always happen. So it really comes down to what's in the bottle, and if you believe it's worth the money that you're paying, and if it provides you that experience that you're looking for. And, some of them do and some of them don't. Let's just be fair about it.
I'm with you. I'm not all about the damn story, Yeah. And we've had that discussion with some other podcasters out there. They probably want to have that discussion with us. We don't really care because, we are two bourbon bullshitters, right?
That's right.
And we can sniff out some bullshit.
I mean, I like a good story.
Yeah.
I like a good story, but it's no substitute for what's in the bottle.
Yeah, you can put the prettiest label on there. You can buy the nicest bottle. But at the end of the day, if the whiskey doesn't taste good in that bottle, what's the point?
Yeah.
You bought a damn story in a bottle and a label. You didn't buy some whiskey. You got suckered.
Yep.
That's what I got to say.
I tell you what's amazing is when you have a distillery that goes through the the process of, they decide that they get their license. They start out purchasing somebody else's distillate, aged already. They put it in bottles, they sell it. It's a profile that they're proud of. It's one that they feel is what they want to do in the future. And then they go down the road to distilling their own and bottling it and trying to put it out on the market as well. And when it comes out, when it's superior to what they had that they got from that they purchased, it's just amazing. And we've seen that. We've seen these distilleries that make better whiskey than the stuff that they sourced in the beginning.
Oh yeah.
And it just blows me away. It just blows me. I love it. I love seeing it. And they have to make money in the process of growing. Some of them make vodka. Some of them buy other people's. I mean, it just varies. Right?
Yeah. It's a business. This ain't a fans group. It's a business when it comes down to whiskey. When people don't get into whiskey, they do because they want to make good whiskey, but at the end of the day, they want to make money too.
Yeah.
They got families to feed. They're trying to grow their business.
To feed.
Yeah. Yeah. Doug Keller's got another question for us, Jim. He said, is there any future swag items coming out? I'll try to answer this.
Okay.
I'm usually that guy, right? And I'm always looking for swag or anything else. I did go to a whiskey event last night, and I was like, man, me and Jim probably get behind this right now. A rocks glass that has the Bourbon Road logo on it. I think if enough people said that they would purchase that rocks glass, it's a rocks glass with a leather piece of leather wrapped around it, and it would have the Bourbon Road logo on it. If enough people said they would buy that from us,
pretty sharp.
Oh, it's really, really nice. And it's not just a piece of stamped each individual letter. It will actually be a mold or a die that they got to cast that has our logo on it. It stamps that leather and stuff. If enough people said, I think we would probably get behind that.
And I think we have plans on coming out with the big bad booty daddy costume for Halloween.
Well, at least a t-shirt. At least a t-shirt. Yeah. Swag's a tough thing, Doug. It takes a lot of money to purchase that stuff, and it hurts to sit on it for a while, doesn't it, Jim?
It does. And some things are popular and some things aren't.
Another thing is me and Jim and I don't have a giant company behind us. It's and for people that don't know this, Jim's son-in-law is the one that packs everything up and ships it out.
Yep. Right.
I go pick t-shirts up for my guy in town, and we get them made, and we get our glasses. We do everything ourselves. There's no big army behind us. It's just Jim and I.
Yep.
And your son-in-law and Mel and Viv. Yep. Yeah. It's not a giant corporation. So swag's a tough thing, but that would be the piece of swag that I'd be looking for. We're always looking for sponsors and stuff like that. But we're pretty comfortable, I think.
Yeah. I think we're doing fine.
Yeah. All right. So Jim, Sean Crum, that's Kimber's man. You know who Kimber is, right?
Yeah.
Might be a future guest on the show with Britt. Never can tell who's coming on the show, people.
That's true.
Sean wants to know, where do you see the industry heading? More finished product, limited releases, more mergers?
Okay, so for me, I definitely see more finished products because the market is embracing that. Even though maybe you and I, not so much. I do think the market as a whole is embracing the finished products. And the reason I think that's true is because finished products open up the opportunity for more like wine drinkers and beer drinkers to come into the bourbon realm. As far as single barrel selections and the whole idea behind doing picks and single barrels is going to continue to grow. I think it's a big market. I think it's going to continue to grow. I think barrel finishes are going to continue to grow. I don't see a lot of mergers happening right now, in bourbon. I think that we're still in sort of a growth stage and not so much of a consolidation phase. I think if the market gets tough on bourbon, if other spirits start to become popular, tequila is growing, right? Tequila's growing. If other spirits start to get more popular and there's a little bit of downsizing in the bourbon market, then we'll start to see consolidation. But as long as it's growing the way it is, I would expect to see new distilleries and a lot more variety.
I could see it a total different aspect. I like big beer companies that bought up a bunch of craft breweries back in the early 2000s, right? You might see that in the whiskey industry, but it would take a deep recession or something, I think, to get to that point, to where the craft distillers are like, hey, I can't afford to do this and I got to give up. You might see a big boy swoop in there where they're like, hey, I got to have more barrels, or I want to have another brand, and see those mergers. But that's where I would see mergers going. I don't know big boys going out there and buying another big boy up.
Yeah, I don't see a lot of that right now. I think that'll happen more if there's a downturn in the market and there's some consolidation. But always, we've seen it like with Lux Row, for example, where a smaller distillery is going to get snapped up by a bigger distillery, and to add to their portfolio, to give them more variety on the shelf, to give them shelf space.
Or you might see an investment group like happened in Bardstown.
Sure. Absolutely.
Get purchased. He also asked, kind of back to our Monday review, that came out about Jack Daniels Bonded. With Jack releasing a product in 700 milliliters, should we expect more to follow suit? And is that a bad thing? I believe that you can expect more of that.
I think we'll see a lot more of that. And there's a number of reasons why that's true. I think you have some opinions on it. I certainly do. The world outside of the U.S. is primarily 700 milliliter.
Yep.
Australia, Europe. The fact that we have to produce a 750 milliliter bottle in the U.S. to meet U.S. requirements is kind of, it's strange to start with. It's sort of like the whole English versus metric thing, right? But certainly companies that produce 700 mil bottles and 750 mil bottles have to be pulling their hair out going, why are we doing this?
Yeah, I think Danny Potter touched on that of, you got to change up your bottling line. You got to change up a lot. And then you look at the flip side of that, of how much money a company can save, not just in glass cost, right?
That's true. Yeah.
But you take 50 milliliters off every bottle. It don't take us a whole lot to start gaining some money. And if you don't change your prices, because a lot of consumers out there, remember, listeners, that you're probably in the 1% if you're listening to this podcast of whiskey drinkers. Most whiskey drinkers don't look at that label and even see how much liquid's in there. They just see a bottle of whiskey up there. And if you could tell me the difference between a 700 milliliter bottle and a 750 milliliter bottle, I can't tell.
So how many people out there who grabbed a bottle of Stella beer realized it was 11 ounces?
Is it 11 ounces?
It's 11 ounces.
I can't tell.
People don't know. So it's kind of the same thing. But, I don't know that that's so much the reason. I mean, it's not necessarily the reason why to go to 700. I think the primary reason to go to 700 is so you don't have a 700 and a 750.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I agree with you there.
Yeah.
But the cost savings got to be
significant.
If you're Jack Daniels, we're not talking, like $5. We're talking millions and millions and millions of dollars.
That's right.
Same thing with Jim Beam.
Simplifies it, reduces the number of SKUs. I mean, it's just a better thing all the way around. And honestly, in some cases, you may need a separate label for a 7. You do need a separate label for a 700 versus 750. So it's not just the bottle itself, but it's the label as well, and the cases and everything else that goes into it.
Andrew Nelson asked, what does the landscape of bourbon look like, and can it sustain the growth and success?
So they've proven that they can sustain the growth. It's already proven. Now, are there unicorns? Is there allocation in the market? Absolutely. It can be very difficult to get your hands on certain products. But as a whole, has anybody not been able to get bourbon? You can get bourbon.
Yeah.
You can get bourbon. So what's the landscape look like? I think distilleries are going to continue to increase production and be able to meet the demands of the drinking public. I don't think that we're going to see a downturn in the market until there's a change in the way of thinking. You know, for example, in the 70s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, as people turned to clear spirits instead of aged spirits, barrel-aged spirits, you know, whiskeys found themselves in trouble. Can that happen again? Absolutely. It all depends on the trends at the moment.
Yeah, right now we're just in a brown spirits world.
That's right.
And for Jim and I, it looks a little different because we live the heart of bourbon country.
Mm-hmm.
You can't go anywhere in Kentucky and not have some bourbon at your hands. But I don't know where the growth can stop, because you see new distilleries open up all the time. Yeah. The money is there.
Yeah. Trends change, and they're kind of cyclic, right? Things kind of go in circles sometimes. So I would fully expect at some point there to be a downturn in the whiskey market, and somebody else is going to become the winner for a while.
Yeah. How does bourbon stay relevant? You know, marketing's all about that. And if the one thing I would say, if these distilleries don't market themselves properly, and piss off the consumer, you know, that can happen. And they turn to vodka, they turn to tequila, they turn to wine. Mm-hmm. You're right. It is trendy. You know, what's trendy at the time?
And then nobody could predict it. If we could, we would all be investing in something else different right now. We don't know what that is. Mike, I wanted to mention, by the way, that I just poured a little bit of this Blanton's that you put out.
It's a pretty special bottle.
It is.
Well, heck, my glass is empty.
You need a little bit of this. This is not just a regular bottle of Blanton's, though. What are we sipping on, Mike?
This is a 2019 straight from the barrel Blanton's.
Yeah, straight from the barrel. What's the proof on it?
125.6.
Yeah.
Our good friend Brian Hyatt is the reason I have this bottle right here. And I traded him one of the very first Peerless bottles for this. Well, it was a pretty damn good trade. I
think you did well.
And he took us to Churchill Downs.
He did. That's true.
So, Brian, if you're listening, man, I can't thank you enough. This bottle has been on the show several times. And you can see it. I'm savoring this one.
Yeah. And, you know, Mike, this has been a pretty epic show. We've had 3 phenomenal bourbons on this show. This is certainly one of them. Now, Blanton's is, there's some haters out there.
Yeah.
But you can't hate this one.
I don't really think you can hate any of them, really.
This one here is full of baking spices and caramel, and it's got that brown sugary goodness. It's sweet. It's strong. It's 120 some odd proof.
Would you consider this a unicorn?
In the U.S., yes.
Yeah, I would
absolutely.
Too.
Now you can get this pretty handily overseas. By the way, this has got this second N on it.
Yeah.
It's got the N semicolon.
We asked that before
for
a giveaway. Andrew's got another question. He said, are craft distilleries the answer to allocation? With the success of several craft distilleries and usually being more available, I've stopped looking for unicorns.
The answer is they can be, and particularly if you're in that mindset. If you're that person that says, you know what, I'm tired of chasing bottles, and I just want to find something different every week or so from a craft distillery.
Andrew, you're spot on with that. I think they are, like Jim said, they are the answer to allocation. They are the answer to unicorns. I see more people looking at their local distilleries and become super fans and lining up around the block to get anything that's special that comes out of them.
Yeah, you know, sometimes Mike and I will go to a bar and we get recognized, or the bartender wants to turn us on to a nice pour or something like that, and they'll say, "You can have anything on the shelf." And Mike, are you asking for the pappy, or for example, I'm always looking for that bottle I've never had before.
Yeah, I'm always looking for something new. If I see something I've never had before, I've had pappy. I don't have it in my house. Now, like I've always said, if you're a listener out there and you got several bottles you want to send Jim and I one, we'll gladly take one off your hands. But I'm not going to go hunt it. What I'm hunting for is something we haven't had before.
Something with that new profile, something out of the box, something different that we haven't been able to experience before. And quite often we get to experience that. And I love it. It's always a great day. So usually when that bartender will offer us that pour, that any pour on the bar, I'm not going for the big bottles. I'm going for something I haven't had before.
Yeah, spot on, Jim. So one more question, I think, Jim. We got enough time for one more question?
Yeah, one more.
So this is from our good buddy, James Ewan, down in Australia. So James's question is around the continuous reduction in proof internationally. Yes, I know it's related to our tax system here in Australia, and distilleries want to remain competitive. It, however, comes at an expense of taste, and I really want to know whether the master distillers, A, know about this, and B, are happy about, and C, whether they agree with the practice. Good Lord, that's a long question.
Yeah, it's a good question, though. And you know, quite honestly, the folks in Australia have to deal with that. You know, their proofing laws down there are quite different than here in the U.S. And their whiskeys are getting proofed down as a matter of law. To answer that question truthfully, we'd have to go and ask that of a master distiller. But I think it's fair to say they probably know. They know what's happening. I think they know what's happening. They may not be happy about it, but there's not a lot they can do about it, right? I feel like anytime you add water to whiskey beyond a certain point, you're going to dilute the flavor.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, I always say U.S. drinkers drink at a higher proof. But I was at the bar the other night and I ordered a cask strength whiskey. And people all looked at me and were like, how can you drink that? So once again, we're here in Kentucky and we love our cask strength stuff, right, Jim?
We do.
I think cask strength whiskeys will come to you eventually. Can you get them down there? Obviously you can, but they do come at a cost and a tax, and that's kind of out of the distiller's hands. It's not like they're not fighting that every day though, right, Jim?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's, you know, they just have to live within the laws and the bounds of, you know, where they have to do business. And unfortunately, you know, I would say it's a struggle in Australia.
Now, I would say to our listeners out there, if you're going to Australia, pack a cask strength whiskey in your bag, pay James a visit, bring him a bottle. I think James would appreciate that.
He'd probably break out the barbecue.
You think he would?
I think
he loves the barbecue. I know that. So listeners, I want to thank everybody that submitted questions. I know some questions didn't make the show. We can only get to so many this time around, but I'd like to do this again, Jim.
Yeah, I think we should do it more often. I think once a year is good. I think maybe every now and then we should try to maybe bump it up a little bit. Maybe do twice a year.
Yeah. But some great questions. Listeners, I got a giveaway for you. And this supports a great cause out there. I got this company called Wiggle Wow. Now, Wiggle Wow is a company that makes dog treats. And Jim and I both have some amazing pets. Woodrow, the whiskey dog, the Wonder Lab, whatever you want to call him, farm dog. He loves these things. These are made by folks with special needs, young men and women. They're going in and making these. I want you to check it out. So you can find their dog treats at wigglewow.com. And in distilleries, you can also find these cool little dog treats that look like whiskey bottles, right, Jim?
Yeah. I mean, amazingly, a play on the names, right?
Yeah. So in front of me, I got a Jim Beam, right? Maker's Bark. That's pretty cool. Maker's Bark. Four Noses. That's pretty cool. And we got Woodford Reserve.
Woodford.
So listeners, what I'm going to do, what Jim and I are going to do is I'll give you one of these cookies for your dog, plus a sample of each one of these bourbons. I do some pretty big samples, don't I, Jim?
You do.
So some 4-ounce samples of Jim Beam. I'll pull a special one off the shelf. I'm not saying it's going to be the regular Jim Beam. I'll do a special one of that. A special's Maker's Mark, a special Four Roses. I have a pretty special one, and a special Woodford Reserve sample for you, plus these 4 dog treats. And I'll throw in a bag of the Wiggle Wow dog treats for you from our good friends there that provided these whiskey bottles. And like I said, this does support folks that have special needs. On the back of each bag, you'll get to see who made it. The one I'm holding in my hand right now is Emily. She likes basketball, bowling, softball, animals, swimming, and exercise. She likes to volunteer a lot and stuff. She volunteers at the Woodstock Animal Foundation of Kentucky Humane Society. That's pretty cool.
Absolutely. So what do they have to do to qualify to win this?
So you, on the day of this release, we would like you to go ahead and give us a follow. Follow Wiggle Wow, if you would, please. Show us that you followed them. And then also, let's go ahead and say hashtag Wiggle Wow and hashtag Your Bourbon Your Way.
Okay. Hashtag, and this is on the day of the release of this episode. There'll be a post on Instagram.
Yes, sir.
Go into that post about this episode. Make sure that you have followed Wiggle Wow, and then make a post in there and say, and hashtag Wiggle Wow and Your Bourbon Your Way. Those are the 2 hashtags.
Yes, sir.
You qualify to win.
9:00 Eastern Standard Time tonight. Why doing it for 9:00, Jim? Because I got to go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
I did it 10:00 last week, and I regretted it because I stayed up until 10:00, and then it takes an extra like 15 minutes to get everything done. So 9:00, do those 2 hashtags. Follow us. Follow Wiggle Wow. We would appreciate it. That's a pretty good giveaway.
And it's not the first person that enters it. You're going to take everybody who's entered it throughout the entire day.
Put it in a randomizer.
Throw them into a randomizer, and one of them's going to win it.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, Mike, where can people find us on the internet?
So you can find us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. We're all over the place. Our main place is on Facebook or our website. We got a pretty cool website, Jim.
I think so.
I love it, man. We got the best website in whiskey, I think. Our designer, I don't know who that guy is.
I have no clue, but he did a decent job.
He does a great job. Check all that out. Check out our Facebook group, the Bourbon Roadies on Facebook. You got to be 21. You got to love bourbon. And you got to agree to play nice. I mean, that's pretty easy. We don't tolerate any rudeness in there. Our moderators will cut you off at the knees. Visit our website. Check out our blogs. I promise you, I'm going to have a blog for you this week. I got some thoughts coming up. It'll just be some random thoughts this week, though.
Cool.
So I will do a blog this week. I'll try to get Jim on time. And we got our swag on there. Our swag is what gets us down the Bourbon Road. Gets us to visit distilleries. It gets us to do bourbon picks, which people are asking for. It helps us out. So go in there and support this veteran-owned and operated podcast.
All right, we do 2 shows every week. Every week we'll do a Monday episode called our Craft Distillery episode, where we review a single bottle, a single expression from a craft distillery or somebody, sometimes a big boy, doing good work. And we'll let you know about that expression, whether we think you should add it to your bar or not. This last week we did Jack Daniel's new bonded Tennessee whiskey.
Pretty badass whiskey.
I thought it was pretty decent. We said you should add it to your bar.
Yeah.
But every Wednesday, we'll do a full-length episode like today. We'll deep dive a subject. This week's episode was on listener questions. Sometimes we'll go to a distillery, have some guests on, have some music, have an author on. We're always mixing it up, always making something good happen. We want to make sure you listen to both shows every single week, and there is a way that you can make sure that you don't miss a single episode. And Mike, what do they need to do?
Well, you need to scroll on up to that app that you're listening to right now. Hit that plus sign, that check sign, that subscribe sign. That app will let you know, hey, these two jokers have an episode coming out today, or it's come out. It'll get you to work and back, or maybe just get you to work. Depends on which episode you're listening to. But then we need you to scroll on down, hit that 5-star review, and leave some comments. We would love that. You know what I'm going to say if you don't. The big bad booty daddy of bourbon will come to your house. Hell, he might even bring the birthday bourbon, the barrel strength, straight from the barrel blends, and that old Fitz 9-year to your house. Drink all night long. 2 of those bottles probably do a bottle kill on. But by the end of the night, you're going to leave that 5-star review. I'll have you laughing. You'll leave us that 5-star review and some comments. But seriously, those 5-star reviews and those comments open the doors to distilleries to us. Get great bottle in Jim and I's hands to do great reviews on. So you'll be educated about whiskey. We would appreciate it.
All right. Well, Mike and I are very approachable. We want to make sure that you understand that and you're willing to jump on our website, get to that contact us page. Let Mike and I know what you think about the show. If you've got an idea for a guest or a bottle, make sure you let us know. You can also send us an email. I'm Jim at thebourbonroad.com. He's Mike at thebourbonroad.com. Like we always say, hit up our DMs on Instagram. I'm JShannon63.
I'm Big Bourbon Chief.
And we'll see you down
the Bourbon Road.